What is up, everybody? You're listening to SFF Addicts in a very special crossover episode with the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast, live here at the start of TBR Con 2024. Welcome, everybody, to a new year of this crazy virtual shit fest that we call TBR Con. I'm your host, Adrian M. Gibson, and welcome to your weekly dive into the world of science fiction, fantasy, and writing craft. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, the Chewie to my Han Solo, the Joker to my Commander Shepard, my dear MJ Kuhn. How are you, MJ?
Hello. I am lovely and excited for TBR Con to start. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. And before we get started, just want to pimp MJ's books, Among Thieves. This is Blue Baby. And Thick as Thieves is Big Brother, that little green baby right there. If you want some heists and hatchets and people fucking each other up and not fucking, because it's not a romance, Thick Ass Thieves for all you out there. As well, you saw the trailer at the opening. Mushroom Blues, my debut novel, is out on March 19th. So go check that out on FanFiAddict, on my Instagram, Twitter, all those places to see the cover and whatnot. But I'll be passing it over to Daniel Coolbaugh to introduce himself and his excellent podcast. Take it away, my friend.
Hey guys, I'm Dan. I started the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast almost like 3 years ago, which is pretty cool. MJ was actually one of my first 8 guests. We did a really cool 2-part episode that is very, very long because she just had a lot of great things to say. But it's great to be reunited with her. It was awesome. There's some good stuff. I've had people come back to me and be like, man, that was a great 2-part episode. I'm like, I know, right? It wasn't me at all. It was just MJ. So everybody should go and take a look at that. It's season 1, episode 7 and 8, I believe. So that was really fun. But excited to be here today and, to get to meet you in person, virtually, Adrian. And Andy, same thing. So it's awesome.
And I just listen to those episodes and think MJ is so cool and 2-parters are so cool. So just bring her on as a co-host and change the format for my podcast.
Well, 2-parters. Yeah, there you go. That's the origin story.
Fucking stealing it. Oh, man. Okay. Lastly, joining us for a deep dive masterclass on getting started in self-publishing is the man himself, a Canadian treasure, Andy Peloquin. How are you today, Andy?
I'm good, but I think the real question here is why is MJ the Joker to your Commander Shepard and not, say, the Miranda or the...
That was her choice.
Okay, she chose that.
Yeah.
Joker is my favorite.
Is low-key the linchpin in the Mass Effect series.
Don't get me wrong, I totally agree with that, but she's got the Miranda look, so that's really what's throwing me off.
Oh, yeah,
That
100%.
is a compliment I will be putting on my tombstone. Thank you very much.
She has the sort of foundational presence of Joker, but the hot looks of Miranda. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
I don't have the accent to be Miranda. I need the accent.
We just need to see how you do in one of those spacesuits, whether you can really go full on ass kicking like she does.
Right? Or whether I'm a little more, I feel like I'm more behind the scenes. I feel like
or whether you're
a Liara Tassoni or something.
Stuck in a chair.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, man. Andy, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit now that we had some Mass Effect talk right off the bat?
Yeah, so I'm Andy Peloquin. I write books. I sit down and I write a lot. As you can see by Dark Blade Assassin, I write big books.
It is thick.
That is a bigger book than I expected. So I think I've got about 40 books and in 6 series published, with more on the way. That's kind of my only bona fides.
Yeah, just humble as always, my friend. I appreciate it.
And he's like, I wrote a couple books, no big deal.
Yeah, just a few.
I have books. I write words.
I write words.
I write words and things.
I guess I'll say that I've been deep diving and overthinking this whole author career successfully since 2018. So that's kind of the best reason for having me on this, to try and say intelligent things. Let's have some fun.
Hell yeah, man. We got this. All right, before we get started, though, we've got a surprise. I teased at it yesterday on social media, but we're going to use this opportunity to do a live cover reveal for Daniel's upcoming novella, Hunted. I'm going to throw it up on screen there. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
There you are, baby. All right, Daniel, can you tell everyone a bit about your book?
Yeah, first of all, I have to give a huge shout out to Corey Ratliff. If anybody needs a cover, he does an amazing job, and he is way too good to anybody. Some of the people I was looking for couldn't even give me that for 3 times the price. And he worked with me really quickly, and I'm a picky guy when it comes to graphics and design because I used to teach it, but I'm not that good at creating my own covers yet and stuff. So he was like really helpful for it. So I just want to throw that out there. So feel free to, take a look at any of my social media posts and things. He'll be tagged in there the next couple of weeks. But yeah, he did an amazing job. He actually, just to tease as well, he actually got novella 2 and 3 already situated too with the covers, and they look.
Yeah, you sent those to me. They're so good.
Yeah, they look really cool. But so they're my prequel novellas for my Nathaniel Wither Monster Hunter series that's coming out really soon. It was like a story that just wouldn't quite fit into like one book. So I ended up deciding to do like 3 prequel novellas instead. And they're set several years before the main series really starts. So I'll actually be doing like a couple different sets or trilogies of these prequel novellas. But in the first one, we find him still a recon Marine in Baghdad in Iraq. And he and his unit end up having a really long shift. They had to cover several patrols at once. They come back, and one of their local friends, he comes over. He's like, "Hey, my son's missing," and his son actually saved Nathaniel and his crew a couple years before this from an IED. So they bonded ever since with him and his family. Nathaniel's one of those guys who's really honorable. So he's like, "All right, I'm out of here. I'm going to go find him." So he goes to the top brass there, and they're like, "Yeah, no, screw you, dude. You're going to stay here, and you're not going to go look for anybody." They got a lot of activity going on. I took a lot of that from like about 5-6 years ago, which really made a lot of sense. And the Recon Marines were actually switching from their original roles to taking on some other ones. So I basically just used that as the background. Nathaniel goes back to his unit. He's like, "Hey, any of you guys can stay here, but I'm going to go help, him find Abita, which is the boy's name." And he just feels like he owes him. So of course he draws a line in the sand, and he's like, "You guys can stay here. No big deal. Nobody wants us to go," sort of thing. And all of his men, which speaks a lot to Nathaniel and his leadership and what type of person he is, they all cross the line and say, "All right, we're going with you." And they go out and try to hunt down where Abita is, but instead they meet some supernatural forces and they find themselves becoming the hunted. So this is his first experience with the supernatural world. So
love it, man. Does that have a release date yet?
I'm playing around right now with either the end of June or July 4th so far. Nice. We want to make sure we get a couple. I just got a editor the other day when I was shopping around. So we're just trying to figure out, the best way to get all this crazy stuff done ahead of time, formatting, stuff like that. But yeah, be either end of June or early July. So
nice, man. I'll try it one more time.
Can I just say that pitch reminded me a lot of that episode of Love, Death, and Robots where it's set in Afghanistan with the werewolves. And I say that as the highest compliment because that whole episode, like the action of it was just so amazing, and you really get the soldier, the military vibe from that episode. So if this one's anything like that, even remotely, I'm in.
I told Corey, I was like, "Hey man," I was like, this is what I'm thinking. And a friend of mine I work with, he's a huge graphic designer. He teaches with me, actually. He's an amazing professional at everything he does. He's like, yeah, so he actually sketched out the original, and then I sent the ideas to Corey, and then we had an American flag at the top, which looked really cool, but it looked too military thriller. We wanted to kind of hit both of those zones. And yeah, I was like, "Hey, do you think you could do this instead?" And I just gave him a different claw mark, but he found that, did that, and I mean, just did an amazing job. So I don't know, maybe that was his inspiration, but I got to give Corey all the credit there. So
very cool.
Nice, man. All right, well, we're going to kick off this masterclass. First off, Andy, how did you get started in self-publishing? Why did you decide to go this route rather than traditional publishing? So
when I first started writing, well, we're going to say it's 10 years ago, because it turns out it's almost 10 years ago. That's crazy. I had written the book that was official. That was the first edition of what is now Assassin. The first, it was the Hero of Darkness series. Actually, it was The Last View Solari way back when. This is a long time ago, 3 covers ago. And I had the story written, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start shopping it around to agents and editors and stuff. And I was kind of learning the whole process through, kind of as best I can, which the internet was kind of just starting to put out that kind of information. But I was writing the next book, and I finished the next book while still doing this process. And then I started writing the next book after that. And then I went through this training course where I wrote the first of the Queen of Thieves series. So I had these 4 books sitting on my computer, and I was like, okay, I wrote all of these books in a very short amount of time. In the time it took me to hear from agents, oh, this book's not what we're looking for, all of that. And I was like, now, I did this. This was about a year of my life. I was like, okay, now if I could do these 4 books, give or take, in a year, let's start adding, let's do that math. Give me 5 years, 20 books. Maybe 1 or 2 gets published by an agent. I have all these books. I was very proud of the story that I told. I thought that a lot of people would like reading it. So I was like, you know what? Let's try self-publishing it and let's see what happens. And by the responses that I got to the story, people were like, yes, this is a great story. Where I failed was in the packaging, which is what we'll definitely get into in the course of this thing. But the packaging let me down. So when I was sort of considering, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make a career out of this? I was like, okay, the bones of the product, which is the story itself, is very solid. People are loving this. Now let's work on the packaging. And so basically from the beginning, because of my writing speed, I came into being a novelist from being a copywriter, where I was used to sitting down and writing 15,000 words in a morning kind of thing. So I was like, if I can do this for 5 years, how many books can I have out? Turns out 40 some is the number, just for anybody who's wondering. But that's basically why I started off with self-publishing. And then the more I got into it, the more I learned, the more I realized, okay, I can have total control over every aspect of this. From the release schedule, I could literally rapid release. I released books once a month, which was totally doable for a year or something. I could decide how long I wanted it to be. If I want to write a 400,000 word book, which I do not recommend it. Let's just put that out. 400,000 word book is just a few too many, but I can do things like that and get away with it. So there is a massive amount of guesswork that goes into it, but the more that I do it, the more I'm like, I made the right choice with this. Will I go traditionally published? When I have a book that I'm like, this one's going to be picked up, I probably will, just for the sake of it, but I'll always be a champion of self-publishing because, at least for people like me who can work hard and write fast and don't like waiting around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there's a lot of waiting around in transit.
Yeah.
There's so much waiting around.
As MJ laughs nervously.
She's like checking her calendar right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, as the so far, I've only done that route as of yet, and it's a lot of waiting. But I'm curious. Because I know Daniel and Adrian, both of you have are pursuing the self-pub route as well with your upcoming projects. What are some other reasons? Do you guys have any other differing takes on why you chose this path too? Let's start with Daniel.
Yeah, I was gonna say Daniel, go first.
So I don't know, Andy, I'm thinking of you where you're like, oh, it's been 10 years. And I always talk to my students and stuff about this, or somebody on podcasts. I'm like, yeah, like 8 years ago, I wanted to start writing this. I was like, oh no, 10, 12. Now I'm like, I was 14. I just turned 36. So I've been writing my own fantasy world for that long. And I have worked tirelessly, relentlessly, changing things, updating things. When I reached a new, writing or author level, I went back and, just did so many changes. And that particular series will come out probably like not this year, but next year, at least the first couple. And I just didn't want to give anybody control over that. I felt really strongly about it. There's a huge gap, I think, in terms of just any publishing with either side of, there's no more Forgotten Realms. There's not a lot of Dragonlance. They have a few more that are coming out, recently. There's so many great series like that I loved. And I wanted to kind of fill that hole that those ending series and those authors kind of left. And it really, for me, came down to, like, I would love to do a hybrid eventually. I think Brandon Sanderson really has it right, with doing both. But, like you said, Andy, it takes a while, right, to get into the traditional route. And I'm not as fast as you, Andy. I don't know if the Flash is, but maybe.
I don't think anybody's as fast as me.
15,000 in the morning, like, okay.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Andy's got his Instagram, TikTok or whatever, reel on Instagram, and he's like, "Oh, here are my books," and it's like almost as tall as Andy.
I've never seen them stacked up before like that. It was shocking to me. I took a picture of it from behind, and I was like, "Fuck, who's got that much to say?"
Hey man, life is chill up in Kamloops,
Yeah, it's real quiet and snowy. It's we've got about 1.5 feet of snow outside. You're not going out. All you can do is write.
Writing.
No, totally. I feel like the other thing is, like, my son, like, I want to give him, control over things eventually. And, with going the indie route, anything I build, including my podcast, because it's all me, you have to cover all the expenses. But, you get all the reward basically. And there's just certain things that, you know, I have a couple things that are coming out on Kindle Vella, and I was like, found out you have to wait like a year and a half almost to get your rights to revert back to then do anything else. So I'm like, I created I just put everything on a different planet essentially, which allowed me to do some cool things. But I'm gonna do that. But my own fantasy series, it's just me. I'm not letting anybody have anything of it at all. I'll create other things. I have some cool things in the works. You know, I'm gonna send to Athon and a couple of other people. But yeah, Titan, things like that. But yeah, for me, it's all about control, like you were saying, Andy. And I like the ability. I'm taking Romans, like the Lost Legion, and putting them with zombies and essentially creating a ancient in the same world as Nathaniel Wither, an ancient monster hunting crew made up of like Roman soldiers and some peeps they find along the way trying to get back home to Rome. You know, but I've had people really like, you know, from some of the indie publishing crowd be like, oh man, that's really cool. But, you know, I think that'd be a hard sell personally in the market, especially the next couple of years with as things going traditional. So I like to install a lot of like what I call historical urban fantasy. I like to use a lot of history because that's what I do. And sometimes that's just not, you know, maybe the flavor that traditional wants right now. But that I think is really what's making indie grow is there's so many different types of flavors, even within different genres. So I just like being able to be like, yep, I'm going to do this and combine these different subgenres and just have some fun. I know somebody will read it. There's over 3 billion people in the world. You just got to find them. So I just
3 billion, bro. There's more than like 7 billion. You got to.
Oh, sorry.
He wasn't it wrong. He said there were more than 3 billion.
That's true. I'm still like.
There's more than 12 people in the world, guys.
Yeah, there are more than the 4 that are in this virtual room right now.
It's not wrong.
Which is ironic that I teach history because I was just talking about the point in time with one of my classes that there were 3 billion. So I'm clearly definitely ready for class tomorrow. So
back to school, baby. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like a multifaceted sort of approach where it's like this podcast's like SFF Addicts single-handedly convinced me not to go in traditional publishing because of all the authors that I talk to. This is not to shit on traditional publishing as a whole. It's not to shit on individual people within traditional publishing because I have met a lot of them. I've interacted with them, and authors have told me about their good experiences with individual authors. But the corporate experience is what tends to take away a lot of the soul from the process. It's what tends to just dump a lot of mental stress onto authors' plates. It's like not only the time factor that we talked about, because it's like, Andy, you're saying like, how many books can I write in a year and publish them myself versus how many years would I have to wait to A, find an agent, B, have that agent shop your book to an editor and a publisher, and the likelihood of your book getting picked up by an editor or publisher, and then entering into the process of working with the publisher to edit, do the cover, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The process is very long. So it's kind of like, you know, I'm not like old, I'm only 32, but at the same time, I'm like, I have 2 kids, I have my podcast, my friends, and everything that's going on in my life. I don't necessarily need more unnecessary stress in my life that is outside of my control. I'm the kind of person where it's like, I can deal with stress when it is in my control. When I can be the person who says, I fucked up here, or I'm not achieving X thing up to my certain level of satisfaction, but to have to wait for an email from a publisher, to have to wait for an email from this person and this person and this person just to get a confirmation about like, this is your cover art, or to get a confirmation about like, this is your marketing schedule or your marketing budget and all this different kind of stuff. I fucking hate that. And I am not the kind of person who, not to say that I'm like an absolute control freak. I just want to be able to have more flexibility in terms of when things happen, how they happen, and to be able to pick and choose the right people to collaborate with to make something be as good as I know it can possibly be. It's like, we'll talk about cover artists and designers and editors and stuff later, but to have the ability to maneuver those things in a way that works for me from a more entrepreneurial sort of standpoint and mentality. It's like, I have barely worked for other people my entire adult life. Like, I was a freelance music journalist, I was a freelance tattoo artist, and then opened my own tattoo studio. And now it's like podcasting and writing. I'm basically carrying forward a lot of the ideas and a lot of the sort of approaches that I had with those different things and applying it to publishing a book. And the things that I've been able to do, just in terms of my skill set, I was able to do the design and all that kind of stuff for the cover of my book, for the interior. And
the trailer we watched.
Yeah, the trailer that was at the beginning, like I
awesome.
animated that, you know, and it's like the music in that was two friends of mine from Sweden who are music producers. So I was able to like collaborate with them. It's just, there's so much that authors have in their hands that they can do and they can achieve. But traditional publishing, for a lot of authors, they want this, takes away a lot of that agency. And so for me, it was about retaining that agency.
That's the perfect way to describe it. The agency, you get to have control, you know, for good or for bad, right? You have control over the process, which means you have the chance to put all the pieces together in the right place to make it super successful, or you can learn from your mistakes. I will say I am probably the king of learning from your mistakes when it comes to my career, which I'll happily get into later because of everything that I've learned over the course of the years. But one other thing that I've noticed lately when it comes to traditional publishing versus indie. Traditional publishing, I will say they are champions of blazing a trail. You will find that their number one directive in many cases is give me something fresh and new, something that's never been done before, something unique, a story that's never been read, or a new take, like a very new and unique take on an old trope, right? Indie fantasy specifically.
Andy, I would even argue against that.
Okay.
From my perspective, indie is where the experimentation happens, and then traditional picks up on the things that they think will be marketable to a bigger audience.
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
There's a feedback loop for sure.
Yeah.
But I think indie has a lot of trailblazing that traditional publishing picks up on and basically pushes into a mass market.
That's actually probably fair. I think the difference is that indie watches trad and trad doesn't necessarily watch indie. There are going to be some people who make them sit up and take notice. Shout out to Ryan Cahill right there, right?
Yeah.
Philip Quantrell.
Travis
Baldry. These are people, Alexander Darwin, everybody who's won the SPFBO. These are people who have made trad sit up and take notice, and major props to them. But from what I hear, again, I have not interacted with as many trad published people as you have, Adrian, through the course of your podcast. But from what I hear, it's very much like, listen, this story's great, but we want something different, something new. So maybe tell a different story.
Yeah,
this is something that
I've seen that with myself. Like I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this without getting myself into trouble. I have a project that I have that's very traditional sword and sorcery. And some of the feedback I'm getting on it from publishers is that it is too traditional fantasy, right? So I do think that there's a little bit of both, because I also think, Adrian, to your point, a lot of indie is, I think there's just more room to play on all sides, right? Where it's like, maybe if we view it as like a spectrum of like super brand new, never been done before, to like, this has been done 1,000 times before.
Right.
Trad is looking for a narrower range somewhere along that spectrum. And for indie, there's readers that are along that entire spectrum. And you have the ability and the freedom to kind of just write whatever it is that you are called to write, that you want to write, and trust that you'll be able to, with the right effort, with the right, logistics that we're going to talk about, I think, in a minute here, be able to find those readers when it comes down to it. What I have noticed reading as much as I have, especially, I don't know a lot of behind the scenes, but reading the kind of fantasy that I've been reading, trad versus indie, is that trad will say, give us something super, super new and interesting and we'll publish it, or give us something very comfortable and familiar and we'll stick with that. With indie, you fill in all the gaps. You get the
wild, absolutely never been done before, a la Adrian
Punk,
Gibson,
baby.
right? And this is where, like you're saying, indie is blazing trails, things that have never been done before and may never be done by traditional publishing. We can do it because no one can tell us no. The only thing that can tell us no is, hey, this book didn't sell. Well, okay, maybe no, or maybe let's try something else. This is where indie is absolutely blazing the trail, but where indie excels, I also think, is filling in the gaps where trad lets us down. If you say, listen, I've got a book that's like the Icewind Dale series, one of the best loved characters of all time, Dritz de Worden, series so much like him, trad's like, I'm out. Sorry, too similar. Now, if you tell, listen up, readers, I, indie author, have written a series that is inspired by this character, people are like, sign me up. Where do I get these books? Why are you not writing more? And this is where indie plays at its strongest. We take what people love about stories and we give them something fresh and new while still being comfortable and familiar. And this is where we excel. And this is, I think, the biggest difference between going indie versus trad. If you've got a story that maybe is a little bit too similar to other stuff for traditionally published, maybe you're going to find a massive audience of readers who want that, and they're just not getting it anymore. And as an indie author, you have a chance for amazing success by giving people exactly what they want.
Yeah. Crystals, you are stubborn, but I love you. But that's why we're friends.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on this before we move into some logistics and essentials?
Yeah, I totally do. I want to just reference when I had on Scott Drakeford, Rise of the Mages. He got held up because of, the pandemic. But it was even like before that, he was like a year and a half out. So by the time, if you're really looking at from when he was, accepted by Tor to the time he published, it was like well over 2 years. It was almost like 2.5, I believe, if I'm remembering right. It was like a long time. And, he's already, that was almost a year ago that I, interviewed him at least. So he's been working on, I think he already has book 2 done, but I haven't seen or heard anything. So, and take Andy for instance, Andy could write like 30 books in that time. So I think that's where you're talking about though, Andy, in terms of those gaps. We see the gaps a lot quicker because things happen so much quicker in indie. So I just think that, for instance, I met Brandon Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss at Kevin Hearn's thing. Brian McKellen was there. Michael J. Sullivan was there. Pierce Brown was there. I mean, there was so many people that were at the Poison Pen. It was like literally 10 years ago, almost on the dot in, I think it's May. It was right before I moved from Arizona, came here. And to see the shift from traditional, and I really got to say, Brandon, going with like Skyward in that series and doing his own thing, I think really opened a lot of doors up for people on both sides. Because people are like, oh, if Brandon can do it, and be successful, then we could do the same thing. And Kevin J. Anderson talks a lot about this on any podcast that he's been on, in terms of like Scott, was on my podcast because even though he's like traditionally published, I'm sure MJ can speak to this too, like you still have to do your own work. So because now these bigger checks, right. And these, this, everything that traditional publishers have gotten, Kevin talks about it all the time. His checks aren't like Star Wars back in the day, and he has to pump out so much more content, and so many more books and stories and anthologies, and then direct other people too, to account for that push in publishing, and especially after the pandemic. So I think, like Andy was saying, like there are these holes, and we're just able to fill the holes up in indie a whole lot quicker, and things happen for us at like super speed. Whereas, it's like a highway versus a traditional road, I think, in terms of traditional publishing. So,
as Ed said in the comments, agility is where
that's a good word for
succeed.
it.
Yeah, because I don't think it's just a matter of speed. I think agility also connotates that there is a flexibility for the author to pivot when necessary. When something doesn't work, try the fuck again. And Andy, you said like with covers, like this cover isn't working. I've seen so many times where indie authors start with a cover. Our friend Alexander Darwin is an example. Combat Code started with one cover and moved on to a new cover. And I think he may have even had like 3 in total before he had like the Felix Ortiz that spanned the trilogy. But that ability to pivot is so key, because you are the one who is in charge of interpreting the ways in which readers are responding, the ways in which they're responding to the story, the ways that are responding to the cover and the marketing and all that different kind of stuff. And you can tweak it however minutely you need to in order to achieve better outcomes for you as an author, like whatever satisfies you and your idea of success. But speaking of putting in the work, I think we should get into a little bit of the logistics, because there are a lot of logistics when it comes to self-pub. But first off, I mentioned the word entrepreneur earlier. Andy, what do you think about this idea of a self-published author being basically like a one-person company, or like an entrepreneur?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that you have to do it all. Like, I have tested a lot of different marketing agencies and publishers, and, basically anybody who could kind of take the work off my hands for me. Some of them have done great jobs. Some of them have done iffy jobs. At the end of the day, no one will ever understand what it is I'm trying to do better than me. Yep. So the more I can learn, the better I am. The one thing that I will never try to take on is the artwork. I am just not built for art. These hands are not the delicate artist hands. They are.
I can pump out 15,000 in a fucking morning, but I can
gorilla hands to hammer at a keyboard all day long, but not art. So the one thing that I'll do, but at the same time, it's like, if I find an artist who works, I'm gonna lock that artist down as best I can. I'm going to keep finding and testing. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand, is that the work is never done. And you kind of have to keep working with different things. I've had artists say, hey, listen, I'm too busy. Felix Ortiz, I got 5 covers from him at a time because I saw how busy he was becoming. So I'm like, if I want Felix Ortiz art, I need all 5 covers done at the same time.
And, I mean, after doing Mushroom Blues with Felix, we had a very honest conversation. He's like, yeah, my schedule, et cetera, very busy, man. But he was like, can you send me a list and rough release windows of like all the books you want to do with me? So I was like, here you go. Up until 2030. Let's rock this, baby. Like, Let's fucking go.
So it's like, all of a sudden, if you no longer have Felix Ortiz doing your covers, what are you going to do? You don't just find a replacement for a Felix Ortiz overnight. You gotta search. And I say this as someone who had to do that search. Ultimately, I found an artist who is absolutely nailing the Darkblade covers. I've found artists who have nailed the other covers in my series. We'll be happy with them until the day I die, or until they say, listen, we are now too busy. And this is just like, you have to keep doing these things. No one will ever be able to advertise my books as effectively as I can. No one will ever be able to get on some ridiculous, Instagram or TikTok video and rave about my books as good as I can. No one will ever be able to promote my business. So at the end of the day, the thing that's going to make me successful is learning and being able to do as many things effectively as possible. And even if I don't know how to do them effectively, a la cover design, knowing enough to help the people do it effectively, being able to give them, say, a detailed brief, or knowing what I'm looking for in formatting, which, these are the things. So the more you can learn, the greater chance of success you have.
Yeah, because it's like the best businesses are run by people who know how to delegate.
Yep.
And the best self-published authors are the people who are able to delegate certain aspects. Obviously, like the writing first and foremost, that's the author. But like you say, cover art, we'll talk about editing too, but it's like delegation is so key. Ed G just drop in this Microsoft Paint cover special edition. Let's go, Andy.
When I do a Kickstarter like special edition of the Darkblade, or if Broken Binding comes to me, we will have a very limited run Andy Peloquin Microsoft Paint version.
Oh, with the sprayed cover, with the sprayed page edges.
Just think about like all the gorgeous interior artwork and the sprayed gold edges, and then some ridiculous stick figure dude on the front. That's
some beautiful pixelated shit.
Amazing.
Andy's dressed as his characters.
Yeah.
I actually have the outfit. A fan made a whole assassin outfit for me. Shout out to Kelly the Red, because she made it. She like got my measurements and brought it to me, and I got to wear it at a convention.
Nice.
I will be wearing it again.
That is some meta cosplay right there,
I
bud.
know.
That is so dope. Goals I didn't even know I had.
Right? It is so cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, we got to get MJ. Someone out there, please make.
I was just gonna
MJ
say that.
Right.
Yeah, make me a Raya costume.
Please,
that
that'd be
cowl
amazing.
itself
cool.
is just so
And the
good.
hatchets. She already has the hatchets. Just get the costume.
I do. I
Bring
already
it.
have the hatchets.
Yeah.
I don't even need
Yeah.
hatchets.
And if anyone wants to check out more about cover art and design and that kind of stuff, there's going to be a panel later today about finding a cover artist and designer, which I think is going to be really helpful to go a bit more in depth into that. But Andy, do you want to talk a little bit about editors and how you approach that process?
Ooh, that is actually one area where I'm unsuited to speak, because when I first was, I had written Child is a Night Guild, I was looking to shop it around to agents, and I attended a convention. I had, a couple of bites from different agents, some 50-page reads, full reads. I went to a convention and there was a publishing company there, and I just walked up to them. There was sort of an industry meet and greet one night, and I was like, so why should I publish my story with you? Tell me what makes your publishing company. It was a small indie press. And I basically spent the entire night talking with their senior editor. And it was like immediately professionally falling in love in the best possible way. And after I signed the trilogy with them to work with him. And after I finished publishing with them and I got the rights back and I was working on other stuff, I was like, listen, I know you work for these guys, but will you do my edits? And he was like, I love your book so much that I will edit your books until the day I die. So 50 books later, this editor has done every single one of the books. So wow. I have never had the challenge of going and looking for an editor. Yeah. So I will say that working with certain like indie presses, I've worked with Athons for 2 of my series, and working with their editors, a lot of times the editors are freelance. So I know that if I was to ask, hey, I need an editor for this project, they would probably say, oh, this guy, he's not super busy, or he's done really, really good. Now, I definitely don't recommend poaching another publisher's editor. That is a mistake that I will not recommend. But I do know that the 20 books to 50K Facebook group, for all the drama that there is, they have a massive list of editors that are there. I know that in the Indie Fantasy Addicts on Facebook as well, there's an author focus side, and there's a lot of people there who post about editors. Like, editors will post their services, and then authors will say, just want to recommend my editor. So basically, find an author whose book you like, that you think is very well edited, especially an indie author, and message them and see if they'll share their editor with you.
Or most of the time, it's like they will include their editor either in the acknowledgements or on the copyright page. Sometimes they'll include their editor on there. So just like look at these books that you love and find the editors that are editing those books and see how you can reach out to them, see what other books they may have edited, and just get an idea of like what their rates are. A lot of indie editors are surprisingly reasonable, but the biggest costs of publishing an indie book come from the editing and the cover art and design. So you need to keep that in mind when you're sort of like approaching how you want to budget a book. I'm in a very, very lucky case where it's like I was able to do a lot of that stuff myself, but it's like not everyone can do graphic design, so they're not going to do like their exterior or interior design. Whereas you might have to find someone out there who does, on top of finding a cover artist. Most cover artists do not do cover design. Those are separate things. Go check out that panel tonight. But I think those are the biggest upfront costs that most indie authors are facing. So it's kind of like determine your budget and just do a shit ton of research and figure out like what works within that budget.
Basically what I tell people whenever I get asked or whenever I do panels or things, I say budget $10,000. $10,000 that you will not see back for a while, because $10,000 will cover your editing. It'll cover a gorgeous cover, and I will happily go all day long about the importance of a beautiful cover.
Of a gorgeous cover. Yep.
And then it'll also cover the cost of advertising. And advertising is, especially in the modern indie market, probably the only way to, you can't guarantee success. No one can, but to give yourself the best chance of success. So $10,000 that you are willing to lose. Think of your
investment.
book as an investment, but it's also very much a gamble in the sense of, hey, this could go really well or it couldn't. Be okay to lose $10,000 on a book, planning to succeed, spending all of this money to succeed. But that's kind of the number that I recommend, because with that, you've got enough.
Mm-hmm. This is a great question, Bert. Are editors like cover artists? You want to use the same one over and over again? 100%. I think, like Andy said, with the editor that he found through that indie press and continuing that relationship, even though it became separate of the indie press itself. And then cover artists, like, I want to have an ongoing relationship with Felix Ortiz because I want all of the books in my Fungal Verse shared universe to have that consistent look to it. So I think it's important to have an editor that you work with, and if you work well together, to maintain that relationship. If you find a cover artist that you really like and you want to maintain that relationship, but also maintain the consistency and the look of your series, those are big things. But all of it comes down to your personal connection with that person. If you're not vibing with that person and the working relationship is shit, I wouldn't say it's worth keeping up over a long period of time.
And if they're missing stuff, if they're making mistakes,
Yep.
things like that, right? But if you find an editor who does good work consistently, who understands who you are as an author, what you're trying to say, they are worth their weight in gold. So pay them what they ask for. That, like I tell my editor, just send me your invoice, whatever it is, I will pay it, because fast, consistent, efficient work is worth more than, a few $100s here or there.
Exactly. Yeah. And trust is everything.
Yes,
as
exactly.
Well.
Like with a good editor, you can actually accept all of their changes without having to go through the file line by line. Like my editor he's amazing. He'll send me a list of all of the major changes. Like if I misspelled a name, he'll be like, name changed back to this. If he capitalized something, he'll say that. But at the end of the day, a lot of those minutia changes, I just accept them sight unseen, and there are no issues because we've been doing this together for so long.
Yeah.
Other changes, like bigger things, he'll make sure to spell them out. So again, it's all about how your editor works. But once you find you can trust them, it makes your life so much easier.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this is a bit of a two-parter. We've got an amazing community here in the chat with lots of people from indie and even some from trad. I think community is a very big thing, from beta readers and reviewers to meeting other authors. And then at the same time, you kind of have to flip that around and view your reading community in terms of how do you market a book and who is your potential target audience for a book. So do you want to kind of tackle that from those flip side dynamics of community as the people you connect with and the people that are kind of more directly interacting with your book and the people who are becoming your friends, and then the people that you don't know personally but are trying to figure out, are you the right audience for what I'm writing?
Yeah, so with the networking side of things, I will say that there is always someone smarter than you at something. So basically, be the dumbest person in any relationship in certain aspects, the least successful, and always like punch above your weight class. Like I am at my happiest when I am at, author conferences or panels or, Slack groups or whatever with people who are more successful than me, because then I can just steal all of their secrets and figure out how to do them better. And I tell them this straight up. I'm like, so a friend of mine, ZS Diamante, he's killing it over on TikTok.
He's awesome.
And I'm like, great, Zach. Now you and I are going to talk because
everything.
I just launched my TikTok channel last week, and I'm like, now tell me all of your secrets, and then I will figure out how to do them my way. And I can't say better, but my way. And so this is the amazing thing about the indie author community is that everybody else has had someone else kind of hold their hand through something. I've held people's hands through the creative process, through the book cover process, through the editing, through all of these things. And I've had people hold my hand through literally every aspect too. So finding those people who are smarter than you and more successful than you at something, be a vampire, drain all their strength, all their knowledge, and then pass it on. Be someone
pay it forward.
or return the favor. Like I will never be the most successful person at marketing, but I will tell you how to advertise. I may never be the most successful person at advertising, but I'll tell you how to get a great cover. Like you just find something that you can return. And what Jonathan said here, people are so generous with sharing success advice too. That's the key. Find the successful people and learn what they think made them successful. And then see how you can apply that in your own life. So when it comes to building a network, I will always say punch above your weight class. Find people who do something better than you and learn. And every one of I can speak for myself, but every indie author that I've met, they're like, sure, we're just kind of bullshitting our way through this too. So I will tell you what I think might have worked. I'm not an expert. Anybody who poses as an expert, I see a little bit suspicious, especially when they can't replicate it time and time again. So anybody who's like, look, here's what worked for me. Do with this what you will. That is someone who I feel is like, okay, they're realistic. They're not going to be like, I'm an expert. Let me tell you all the secrets. No, there's no such thing.
Like I can't even like count the number of authors who have shared advice with me, or done like Skype or Zoom calls with me, like Ryan Cahill and Rob J. Hayes, like amazing guys. And thank you so much. Like just call me and like, we'll talk for like an hour or two and I will just unload like a fucking masterclass on you. Right. Everyone out there will get this masterclass, but it's like, if you can find the people out there who are willing to share what they've learned with you, like, do not take that for granted. Say yes, listen, and just like ask every question that you feel like you need to ask, because the time will come where you're able to give back to that person. And like you said, Andy, you will be able to pay it forward to another author who is coming up.
I will give you an example. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, mine's a little longer.
We've figured out about, talking with authors in general, or at least I have through the SFF Addicts show, is it's like we're just all big, nice, friendly nerds that just like to talk about writing and shit, right? Like people are so willing to talk about their advice.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's someone who's starting out. It doesn't matter if it's someone who's like a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, well, remember Michael J. Sullivan, and they stayed on for like 45 minutes after to answer some questions that I had.
They're so awesome.
And I was like, oh my God, they're like the sweetest humans.
And Robin's just like, Kickstarter MJ, do a fucking Kickstarter.
I know.
That's really what it comes down to. There was this thing where Neil Gaiman, I believe it was Neil Gaiman, he was talking about how he went to some event with like astronauts and all of that, and he felt so out of place. And this is Neil Gaiman, right? So if you put that into perspective, every one of us, beneath whatever kind of accolades you see, Ryan Cahill's name is all over fantasy book talk, Twitter, Facebook, literally everywhere. And you talk to him and he is just such a nice guy, right? And he's like, I write stories. I live my life. This is who we are beneath. So never hesitate to approach an author. If you've loved something about their story, if there's something that you would like to learn from them, if there's something that you want help with, especially in the indie author community, reach out to them. 99% of the time, the answer is going to be, listen, I'm not an expert on this, but here's kind of my advice and feedback. And that's kind of the fun of like the masterclass terminology. Like it's a bit of a double entendre when it comes to SFF Addicts, because people come into it, they're like a bit intimidated by the fact that masterclass is put onto this. But I'm like, no, it's just us having a conversation. Like, don't worry about it. It's more like a masterclass, not from the perspective of the person giving it, but from the people receiving it. And I think people who talk about these things and talk about craft and talk about all of the things that have gone into their career and their success, it's hard for them to potentially comprehend the value that has for other people who are in a much more like nubile state of their career. So it's like new authors will devour that stuff. I started SFF Addicts because I was like, I know nothing and I want to learn as much as I can for free. So I'm going to like reach out to every author that I can. And like, Daniel, you can probably talk to this too. Like most of the podcasts that are hosted by writers, it's like
majority of us started this because we wanted to just learn and absorb as much information as possible with cool people, and at the same time be able to provide that information for people out there who don't necessarily have the contacts or the means of, having an author come appear on their computer and basically just tell you like, here's what you want to know. So start a podcast.
It is awesome though, because like I always call our podcast, I call it like my author diary essentially, because and there have been so many people, like people always ask me like, well, you probably have like all these traditional or these indie people that are really famous. I was like, no, I'll interview whoever, because there's not been one author that I have not learned from, whether it was like their first day, their first book, their first anthology story, like whatever. Could have been, like Fletcher and I were just on again the other day. Hoping to have him and Anna on soon for In the Shadow of Their Dying. Holy crap, was that amazing book? And him and like Clayton, War to End All. I mean, he's one too. He's like, I approached him, Jed, Rob, and Dirk when they had their podcast out first thing, and that's the only way I got started. And I was like, hey, I need help. What should I do? Jed responded to me immediately. Rob was really cool. Dirk, I mean, all four of them, and like the amount I learned from those guys. And like I emailed or messaged them constantly, on any social media. Mike's always like, yeah, let me know anytime you want to talk, privately or on air, whatever. Him and I just love books, and love helping other people too, to help build up, because we know what it feels like. So, but I mean, I just always learn something from everybody. And I have a whole stack of notebooks here from just, if I'm talking to somebody, I'll just write stuff down. And I mean, I'm always taking something away. Like Andy said, I've talked to Kevin Hearn privately. I met him years ago. He was awesome, but I'll talk to him every once in a while, ask him a question about urban fantasy or really like research. Like, how do you research some of these historical things, and how do you find veins in particular that, you're going to put in your book or to help you world build or something like that. He was amazing. There's been so many people. I've had a couple people approach me. First time Andy started talking to me on Instagram, I'm like, is he like talking to the right person? Like, I was like, thought he was like messaging you or something, Adrian, and just happened to click or something. So I went and told my friend, I was like, that's pretty freaking cool. We had some great conversations about different books and sharing recommendations and stuff. And it's kind of cool because like one of my friends actually suggested Darkblade Assassin, and I was like, hey, one of the things you're trying to do with one of your characters is really similar to how Andy's written it. So I was like, oh, cool. So I went and started reading that series because of a suggestion. And I was like, oh, this is really, interesting because it's kind of quite similar ideas. So I learned something from talking to Andy on Instagram, learned a lot of things. So I think, anybody you can talk to, like Andy's saying, I totally agree, go above your weight class. Les Brown's a motivational speaker that I love. And he always says, you only have so much energy to get you so far. You got to find other people that can help you, and they will literally take you to the next level. And I think that's perfect advice there, Andy, just saying like, hit with people above your weight class. And like, you and MJ are saying, I've never once had anybody, I've had people like say, oh, I can't right now, but go and talk to this person. That happens to me all the time. I've been lucky. I have like 200 people that want to be interviewed over the next like 2 years. So I'm like, that's awesome. But sometimes they're like, hey, go to my group and post in there. We got all sorts of booktubers, YouTubers, podcasters. Somebody somewhere will, be able to help you quicker than me. I'll blog it though, or put in my newsletter. But, just same thing you guys are saying, just paying it forward. So it's such a cool community out there.
And a really big thing, actually, Chuck Wendig told this to MJ and I. Don't treat, obviously punch above your weight class, but do not treat the community and people within this community like rungs on a ladder. Do not use them as a stepping stone for you to get somewhere else. So it's like you can absorb all this information from them, but at the same time, it's like you're likely going to develop a friendship with them. You're likely going to be able to help them out when they need it. And so it's all about that reciprocation. And I think that's very important. Don't just use someone so that you can climb up to the next point in your career, because that is the sort of attitude that will, it'll come back to bite you in the ass, and it'll diminish your reputation within a community of people who are very forgiving and very open.
It's just less fun. Like, God, everyone's so nice. Like, why would you not want to like actually form relationships with the people here?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think they're like for as an example, someone is helping me shop around the Darkblade series to get an audiobook deal, right? And this person who's helping me is, we're going to say, a rung above me, right? In terms of success, in terms of reach, in terms of, clout, we'll call it. I don't know what I can do to help them in return. Now, if ever there was a question, hey, is there something? Immediately a yes. But what I can do is I can say, okay, someone's helping me, so why shouldn't I help someone? Like, exactly. It's all about that paying it forward, paying it back, and just basically being a genuinely decent human being. And this is something where
don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. And this is something that ties into the other half of your question about, there's the networking side, but then there's also being part of a reader community. This is something that I've been keenly aware of. At the end of 2022, I broke my 6 or 7 year book drought where I was reading, 10 books a year, a few audio books, because as a writer, it's so hard to read. And then I found a series that just shattered something in my brain. And now I've read over 100 books since then, which is mind-blowing for me. So I'm like, okay, I am now fully a reader again. And the more I've been reading, the more I've been understanding the reader side of things. I'm no longer remembering, okay, I loved Sherlock Holmes when I was 10 years old. I loved Conan when I was 16. Like, these are old memories. I am now messaging authors. I am sending Richard Swan DMs because I'm loving Tyranny of Faith so much that I'm like, I am now a fan, right? We'll see if he gets annoyed by it or not. So far, he hasn't blocked me. We'll call that a good day. We'll see tonight when we're on when we're on the same panel.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to be chatting with him later.
Richard's a sweetheart. It's all good.
I started reading it because we were going to be on this panel. So I was like, I want to, understand what he's talking about. And before, 20 minutes into the book, I was like, I am now a fan. I am going to embarrass myself on this podcast with him. But this is something that I've been noticing. I've been recording more video reviews to post to TikTok and Instagram because this is now the thing to be done. And it is my excitement for books that makes me actually enjoy recording these things and posting them, even though I am very much not the kind of person who likes being on show. Like, I'll do great in a podcast for an hour or so, and then I will not talk the rest of the day, kind of thing.
You've drained your social battery.
Exactly. Yeah. But you get me talking about the books that I love, and I will go all day long. And this is where, as a reader, this is, I think, what authors need to remember, is that you are an author. This is a massive part of your identity, but you became an author because you fell in love with the story. You fell in love with one story, 10 stories, 100 stories. Something made you say, I need to do this too. I need to bring my own flavor of this art into the world. So you are a reader. Engage with the reader community on the level of a reader. Read books. It's an impossible ask given how busy you are as a writer. It's an impossible ask given your editor brain is firing 99% of the day long, but do it. Push past it. Read the books that are there. Find the love of reading and then dissect it. Turn that writer brain back on and say, what did they do here that I loved so much that I am now willing to embarrass myself in public on a panel with an author that you've never met before? This is the kind of thing. If you can tap into this fandom that you are a part of as a reader, and then bring that into your writing as an author, or find a way to merge those two into the same thing, that is what will make you succeed on the reader's level, because you are not some author talking to them through your book and just sprinkling pearls of wisdom,
just pissing excellence.
Exactly. Let's be honest. My fantasy books are not changing the world, and I'm fully okay with that. What I can remember is, at the end of the day, I am telling my story. It really is. I'm telling some aspect of my story or some human story to someone else, and they're connecting with me through this experience. Remembering that it's all just a bunch of people doing people things. Let's be people together. Let's rave about someone else's book that's not our own, that we loved. Let's talk about something that inspired us. Let's be readers together. And then sure, you can be an author too. I have noticed I've been watching a lot of authors on TikTok, again, being part of it and then dissecting it to see how I can do it. A lot of authors talk first and foremost about their books, which is fine. I don't want to be that guy. I want to talk about other books that I've loved. And then every once in a while, I'll throw a little bit about my book because I just don't like people who talk endlessly about their books. So we're going to spend the rest of this podcast talking about someone else entirely, please.
Well, I agree with you, Andy.
We're at the hour mark, so Andy's starting to drain. Oh, shit.
Say, Zach does an
I had
amazing
copies,
job
so I'm
with
good.
So Zach does an amazing job with that because I would say I saw 3 TikToks from him yesterday, and not once did he mention his own book. I mean, I think there was a 4th one came out earlier this morning, whatever on my timeline, and so that was 4 to maybe 1. And sometimes, usually, I'll see him do like a 6-to-1 ratio. So he rarely uses his channel even to talk about his books. And one thing cool that he does that I want people to check out is ZS Diamante. Him and I were talking like I think it was about 2 months ago, and our episode just came out, but like it was so cool because, and I saw this firsthand, was he was like, oh, I'm gonna send out copies, signed copies of my book when people buy them, and he maps them out. And I've only seen him and like 2 other authors do it, but it's such a cool idea. And I've seen him do like 50, but I still every time like to see the map added. I'm a map nerd, but it's so cool. So I agree with you, Andy. He just does that kind of thing, and I don't know. It's so cool to hear him talk. And him and I have very similar reading tastes. So him and I will share books back and forth, on social media or Facebook Messenger or whatever, or TikTok. And it's just so cool. There's some stuff that I've read, that I'll share with him or vice versa. I've gotten a lot of great book recommendations from him. And it's actually, I would say, has definitely improved me, not only as a reader, but as a writer. So I totally agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you get to connect with people. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You connect with bookstagrammers or Instagrammers or fellow authors or people on Twitter or on Facebook. You connect with them on a very real level, which is we both love this. There is actually a couple of people on Instagram that I won't even bother reading the blurbs or anything else about the book. I will just go to them and say, did you like this? Yeah. Shout out to Esme. Hi, just popped on. Legitimately, I will just message Esme, hey, did you like this book? And because our tastes are so similar, I know what I'm in for because she's read it, or she'll ask me, did you like this book? Mm-hmm. And so being able to do this is such a lovely part about the community. It becomes a community and it stops being a marketing tool. And then, yes, we may have a little height disparity, but twinsies and
it's all good.
It's in here, yeah. But that's what it's all about is understanding the community itself, being a part of the community, and then finding ways to use that community to work for you as an author. This is something also that I run the indie, or I am one of the admins of the Indie Fantasy Addict group on Facebook. And this group is about 8,000 or 9,000 members strong. And we have worked our asses off to keep it as free of marketing as possible, because any group that starts off and just descends into marketing, people they just leave. And I have left hundreds of groups because of that. So I'm like, no, I'm a reader. This is the group where I am reading indie fantasy books and raving about them. Yeah. So I will only ever post reviews and then whatever sort of stuff I have to post as an admin. I'm never going to promote my books there. There will be plenty of opportunities where every Friday we do a self-promo post. People can do that. I don't do it anymore because I want people to connect with me as a reader. Once they understand my taste as a reader, and I say, guys, this book I loved, this book I loved, this book I loved. I love all those books too. And then they hear somewhere else entirely, by the way, these 3 books also inspired my story. They're like, wait a minute, tell me more. And then it becomes organic connection or organic engagement through legitimate emotional connection.
Yeah, because it's like MJ, she does really well in terms of how she promotes other people's work in the sense of like, do you like this book? Well, here's like boom, 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 like 5 recommendations. Do you like this video game? Here are some books that are similar to that video game, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's a really good way to kind of encapsulate what people may love about a particular book or a particular series, property, what have you, and then be able to immediately see like, oh shit, there's more out there like this. And that may very well tickle their fancy once they say like, I'm going to buy this book, or I'm going to get this thing, or I'm going to support this author or whatever. 100%. David Mitchell, He's one of our patrons on Patreon, so thank you. Can Adrian please mess up his hair or something? I will live on air, just like
come on, man.
I like that.
Copy
It sound
queen.
rudeness.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. He can not be always well put together. He is capable.
There you
of
go. Crushed it.
Well put together on camera, a fucking mess in real life. No, I'm just kidding.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. But Andy, I totally agree with you. It's like there are certain sort of avenues to express certain things about this community where it's like readers wanting to talk about the books and not really wanting to have the imposition of marketing and what have you. But on the other hand, it's like, obviously you've mentioned advertising a few times. Marketing is also important when it comes to the individual author trying to push their work out there. So I wanted to get your take on sort of how an author might approach book launch and post-launch, even like pre-launch, book launch, and post-launch, from the perspective of like, how am I going to get my book out there? Which sort of like platform should I release on? What sort of format should I make it available in, and all that kind of stuff? And if ads are even worth it, and how you bring in something like discounts or giveaways or all that kind of stuff.
So basically everything.
Every
I will
like
definitely.
5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So here is book launch success in 60 seconds or less. No. Okay, so the one thing that I will always champion is the 4 elements of a successful book package, right? The book itself, the story itself is written. Congratulations, you have a finished manuscript. Now comes the work part, right? In the sense of you have to figure out what to do. So your package comes down to 4 elements: your cover, your title, your blurb, and your opening scene. These are the 4 elements that you have to nail to get the success. And now we can talk a little bit more about them. I just gave you the money shot there that you can trim into a 10-second clip.
Into a little clip.
Exactly. So I will say that your book cover is 75% of your success. Packaging wise, I will say everybody looks at Adrian's cover, the mushroom blues. Honestly, who gives a shit about what the blurb says? You see that cover, you see, and you're like, okay, I'm in, right? I have stopped reading blurbs entirely because I don't care about blurbs. They're important, but I don't care anymore because I see a cover, and this cover tells me so much of what I want to know. So I talked about I am the king of, second chances, right? When I first launched the last Bucellari series, was the original title, in 2015. That was my first book launch through a publisher. My sister did an amazing art a cover that looked like a heavy metal cover. I was in love with this thing. It's black background with white and red and this silhouette of an assassin. So cool. So didn't connect with the audience. Didn't really sell. I got the rights back. And I was like, okay, now we're going to go deep into doing this. We're going to study book covers. We're going to look at what is done and see how to do it. So at the time, this was 2017 when I was doing the research, photo manipulation covers. Let me see. There we go. This was pretty classic, right? This was done. A lot of the big books were fairly commonly using photo manipulation covers. We're going to get to the new cover after.
I just had to show it off. It's too good.
This is the old version. Some things, some details that went into it. The bright here, this shows the more epic, little heroic flavor, but then you've got a dark-haired character, which in cover art means there's a little bit darker, a little more anti-heroic than your Adrian-looking, hero. Sorry to call you out.
The Adrian M. Gibson, Zach Argyle category.
Exactly. The classic Aragon, the handsome blonde
The
dude.
fucking farm boy.
Right, exactly. So this cover, when I released it in 2018, was done, right? This was what everybody did, and the book took off. Between the 7 books that I published and then the box set, I sold something like 80,000 books over the course of that time frame, which is super good. And then sales inevitably dipped, and to where I was working on other projects. I think after I launched Darkblade 7, I put out 20 some other books. And after a certain point, the series wasn't really selling much. So I was like, okay, now I'm going to write more. I always knew I wanted to write more in the story to bring the character back and, finish it. But I'm like, I could launch a book 8 into a series that's not selling, or I could figure out how to make this a brand new product that's still exactly what people know and love and want, but then also something that feels fresh and new. So this is where I went into the whole rewriting process of the series from Hero of Darkness to Darkblade. And this is what I paid attention to, where I was talking about your opening scene. Give readers an opening scene that gives them as much interesting action. When I say action, my characters tend to be real bloody, real violent. So that's kind of the way I go. But action that keeps their heart racing, engaged, adrenaline, all of that gives a sense of the character in terms of what makes them badass and worth reading. Like, I'm not a big fan of the, farm boy on a farm introduction. Not my thing. I'm going to set you immediately. Shit's about to hit the fan, or, people are about to die, which is where I'll always start. But then also give them the human element. At the first chapter of the new Darkblade is just hack and slash, which I love, right? And then the second chapter is hack and slash. Oh, but he's a little bit human too. There's stuff we can like about him. This was a very intentional opening scene that I know that within 2 chapters of the book, people will have a good understanding of what this character is all about. So I went into the rewriting process with this very intentional thing in mind. When it came time to design the cover, Felix Ortiz was not available. So I was like, now I have to find someone new. So I had worked with another artist, Luciano Fleitas, for my sci-fi series that I did through Athon Books, and he nailed 13 covers in a row of this whole series. So I was like, okay, you got this. So what I did was I looked at all of the books that were the closest to mine. I knew from the beginning I loved Night Angel. Night Angel was a huge inspiration behind me. I knew that I loved, right here, Night Angel. This is the book that made me say, I want to write. I ran out of Durzo Blint and I needed more, so I created my own. That is my writing journey to varying degrees. But so I was like, all right, I'm going to find every single assassin looking book and look at their covers and see what I love. So Kelcade, The King's Dark Tiding it's a Chris McGrath art. It's very beautiful, very eye-catching, very striking. Night Angel, right? You've got this. You immediately understand what you're getting from this cover. Someone's in a hood. He's got knives. He's probably an assassin. Michael J. Sullivan's Rhaenyra, right? Royce Blackwater is one of the best loved assassins in the world, right? This is another one. David Dalglish's Shadow Dance series. 6 gorgeous covers with the same, instantly visible what you're getting, right? So this is what I wanted. I told my cover artist, give me exactly what I want. Like, show me what I'm getting from this book through the art. I basically said, do this, but better with all of these covers. I keep doing this to this day. And so then you get this thing. So you've still got kind of the color scheme of the original, but then you look at him, you're like, this dude is not a happy, nice dude. He's got this jagged looking sword. Ooh, there's some magic in a glowing dagger. What's going on? Right? So immediately your interest is arrested. And then typography is a huge element. I will not even begin to dive into typography, because as much as I have learned about kind of, helping artists come up with good art, I cannot tell you anything about typography other than I don't know. It doesn't quite look right. That is my expertise.
Yeah. But, it's like I've done graphic design too. And it's just like with Mushroom Blues, that was just an instinctive thing where I'm like, this looks dope. But a lot of the time I'm like, I have no idea.
So much of the typography and that element of design comes down to maybe, and then something happens and it just clicks, and that is when it's beautiful. And so mad props to Jamie Castle. He did the typography on Darkblade. You can see just like the detail that went into it. The A's, there's blood, like the daggers, like everything awesome. just pops. And I saw this and I was like, this is it, and this is the cover that I will forever be able to say, this is my flagship series, because this is something that like with the photo manipulation cover, it went out of style. I saw a lot of people doing the DAZ, the 3D covers. I still see them, but the characters look stiff and lifeless, and they don't really work. That is phasing out. I see people bringing in AI covers right now. That's got its own ball of wax. But one thing that I do notice is that, the illustration on the cover of the Fiona of Our Tapestry or Tigana or the sword, these books that have been around forever, you still look at them and you think this is a masterpiece. Look at Frank Frazetta's Conan. No one will ever be able to look at a Frank Frazetta Conan art and say, it's out of date. This thing is going to outlast society, right? So this is what I want for and this is what I recommend for artwork. Find art that is not necessarily trendy or like the style of the thing, but that will be evergreen. And so then you get that. So you've got your opening scene. Write an opening scene that immediately hooks people. Get that cover locked down as close as possible to the books that are as close as yours. So this is something that's very important. Readers, when they look at the cover of, say, Night Angel, right? Everybody who's read Night Angel immediately thinks, ooh, Durzo Blend, right? Easy connection there. Anybody who looks at the cover of Way of Kings is going to be, ooh, Shardblades and Kaladin. You have a character, and this is where it kind of comes back to indie filling in the gaps in the, I loved this character and there's no more. I love Durzo Blend, there's no more. Well, I'm going to create my own. I love Dritz Zorden, and there's not enough books of him. I'm going to create something based on that. And so this is lean into that gap that you're filling. Create a cover that evokes the books that inspired this story or that are most similar to this story, but is unique. It sets you apart and stands and looks beautiful in paperback and on Amazon's real small thumbnail size. And between those two things, you're basically 95% done. The title is super important in that what are you giving people? I mean, MJ Among Thieves, boom, thief novel, easy, right? Darkblade, assassin. Yeah, I know exactly what I'm getting here. Mushroom Blues, there's mushroom, and if there's not blues, Adrian, we're gonna have a conversation.
There are some definite blues in there, man.
Good.
Some people getting moody, some people getting beat up. Yeah.
And I need some smooth blues playing in the background at some point in the book, or else
they're actually
reading playlist.
Yeah, I actually have the two friends from Sweden. They finished an 8-track album that'll accompany the book. So we got that.
Perfect. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's not blues, but
it's fine. Just throw like an 8-bar of blues somewhere in there, and then you're good. But my point is that you have chosen a title that immediately conveys something critical about your world. Same as you, MJ. Among Thieves. Thieves. Easy sell. I will read any book that says thief. Bethany B.S. Garcia, or of Shadows and Thieves. And I'm like, how much thieving is there in this? I don't care about anything else. This is what I want because I love thieves, right? So my Queen of Thieves series, easy title because, okay, she's a child in the first one, but Queen, what's going on? It engages interest. So the title is the last, I'm going to say, okay, fine. We'll say cover and opening scene are 90%. Then you have another 7.5, which is the title, and then the last 2.5% is the blurb. Blurb is important to a lot of people. A lot of people will read a blurb and they'll be like, maybe not. But I will say that more and more people are just getting used to clicking on that look inside button and reading the opening scene. Or when I am at a convention, I won't even tell people about the book. I'll be like, listen, take this, read the opening scene. They'll stand there reading. It is my most effective sales tactic in person sales is you just hand them the book and tell them to read the opening scene. And I've written an opening scene that people want to stop and read. And then afterward, they're like, okay, now let's see what's going on. And so then you tell them afterward. But really, the blurb is very small in importance compared to everything else. So if you can get these 4 elements on lock, you have a gorgeous cover, a great title, an opening scene that slaps, that gives both badass action and amazing sort of a glimpse of humanity there, and then a blurb. You've got probably the greatest chance of success that you will ever have, because that great packaging can sell a mediocre book, as we have seen time and time again by books that there have been some indie books that have sold. Trad. Trad especially really rocks those covers, and then the book itself is like, eh. But that's what it comes down to. So you've got all of this stuff. This has to be done before you even think about launching the book. Then you spend time launching the book. And this is where playing the long game is super important. If you can give yourself 6 months from the time you have a finished product, you have a package, you have a cover, you have a blurb, you have all this stuff, you give yourself 6 months to start, obviously more, but 6 months minimum, start building a newsletter list, start building a, social media presence on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and all these other places, like wherever you're most comfortable. If you start reaching out to people, to reviewers, to read advanced copies, you just start putting in the work of preparing to spread the word come launch day. You spend that 6 months ahead of time. I know it's a huge ask. It's your first book or your second book, and you just want to get that out there and start building it. Trust me, I made that mistake. And I was able, because I'm indie, I was able to unpublish that book. And so now no one knows it exists, and no one can ever accuse me of having written a shitty first book. but like looking back, if I had taken 6 months to do that, it would have changed the trajectory. And this is something that Adrian, you're definitely doing well. I know a lot of other authors that are coming onto the scene. Caden Love just did it with his Elegy of a Fragmented Vineyard book.
Yeah.
He set all of this up, and he's got himself in this position to succeed based on the merits of his story. So he's gotten his packaging in the right hands to make it visible. And now the hard part, obviously, the story has to succeed or fail, which having read it, I'm optimistic. But you've got all of this. So you've got this 6 month window to do as much as you can. And you start giving away, you can do a freebie, you can do sample chapters, you can enter giveaways, you can do, newsletter builders, you can do whatever helps you to start getting people to take note of your name as an author. And then comes launch day, and all, with the right preparation, connecting with other authors and being like, listen, I'm totally new, but this is where it comes into being a reader. If someone messaged me and said, listen, I love Darkblade. The Hunter was this. It inspired this element of my story. Would you be interested in reading an advanced copy or, sharing it to your newsletter? If someone had actually read Darkblade and loved it and been inspired by me the same way that I was inspired by Brent Weeks, I'd be like, okay, let's give it a try. It is the nature of humanity to find, to find other people who find you attractive. This is dating and romance and marriage at its core. And it turns out, networking.
As self-pub, yeah.
Exactly. So
gotta edit the title of the masterclass now. So.
Yeah, right.
Dating
Getting
advice
started.
with Andrew Peloquin and some publishing.
And some publishing.
But this is where we're being a diehard reader first, or having a reader's mentality first. If you find authors whose books inspired you or whose books are similar to you, you can message them. If I was launching Tile of the Night Guild today, MJ, you would be getting an email from me in about 3 weeks after I finish your Thief books, because I'm like, I need to find people who know something about launching a Thief book, or who other people have loved their Thief books, things like this. So this is where having that 6 month, if you can do a year, amazing, but at least a 6 month window, you can be intentional with your reading. You can actually look for every single book that is close to your book, read it, and then message the author and say, listen, I loved your book. And it's genuine because you genuinely did love their book, or something about it enough to say, can we connect over this?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to help me? And especially when it comes to fellow indie authors, we were talking earlier about punching above your weight class, or a rung above you. There are only rungs above you. Like, you, as an indie author, you will never be like, oh, so-and-so is a rung below me. No, that is not, that is never going to happen. You are always on the bottom rung in your own mind. So there's always going to be someone higher, but you'll never think, oh, this is a new author. This is someone they're beneath me. Does not, or in my experience, the people that I've connected with doesn't happen. So this is where having these connections comes into play. And so this 6 months where you've got your book finished, you've got your book packaged and ready to go, and you're sitting on it, this is where it's crucial, because you start interacting with the reader community as a reader. And this is where Zach ZS Diamante nailed it. He spent so much time building his audience on TikTok without ever talking about being an author. He was talking entirely about being a book lover, which is what we're all here for anyways. And then people started learning, hey, I like this guy's taste in books. And then he says, wait a minute, he also wrote a book that we love. It's similar to this other book we love. Okay. And this is where this cushion of time gives you that huge advantage to engage with your community as a reader first, and then engage as an author afterward. And this is where I see a lot of people like Adrian, people who engage first with, they've got their podcast, they've got their review channel, they've got their, their book blog, or they do their Bookstagram or whatever it is. And then they launch a book, because eventually you spend enough time around authors. We kind of ruin you and make you and convince you that you want to
do this.
Exactly. You want to be cool. You want to go through
you catch the bug.
Oh, you were just a podcaster, you little peon. Come join us.
Exactly. We convince you to be like us, and then you start writing your book. And because you've engaged with the reader community as a reader first, and it's authentic, genuine connection is what breeds success. And this is where that 6-month window is absolutely game changing.
And then after that, it's like, obviously you have all that momentum that's building up towards launch, and you have the launch itself, and then you have post-launch, which is kind of like, from all the authors I've talked to, post-launch is kind of one of the weirdest periods of time, where it's like you're waiting for all this shit to happen, but the one thing in your mind is like, how do I keep up the momentum in terms of, how do I keep up the momentum of interest in my book? How do I keep up the momentum in terms of eyes on the book and reviews and all that different kind of stuff? And then at the same time, you're thinking like, what's the next book going to be? How do I potentially advertise this book that I just released versus split my brain and put it into writing the next one in a series, or the next one in a different series, or what have you?
Yeah. So this is where I went. I think I set myself up for success. We'll say unintentionally. I would like to, take some kind of credit, but we'll call it unintentionally. I typically write a full series before I release a single book, which is a huge gamble. But when it comes to, like, if I can write 100,000 word book in a month, it's not as much as a gamble as someone who takes, 6 months to a year to write that. So it's still a gamble. But if I can spend 6 months to 8 months writing a full series, I can launch that series. Or even if I've only got, say, like with my Silent Champions military series, I wrote the first 3 books before I ever considered launching it. And book 4 was almost done. Book 5 I had written as for part of an anthology, and then I just had to write book 6. So the series itself was pretty much done before I even started thinking about releasing book 1. If you're writing a trilogy, it's a really good option to go with, because what happens is you can do the rapid release thing. Rapid release was very effective in 2017 to 2020. Around 2021, it stopped being as effective. Yeah. It can still work really, really well in your favor. And where it's very beneficial is that you're not just working with one book, which is one product that you sell, and then the sale is over. You're working with 3 or 6 or however many. So maybe you can, you take a haircut, you lose out on the first book in the series. But then because you launch book 2 a month or 2 later, that's what I'm hoping 2024 will be like. I have a trilogy that I'm hoping I can knock out in 6 months, but we'll see what happens.
Oh my God. I
all
can
of them are 400,000
one
words.
book in 3 or in 6 months.
If you have these multiple products, you can release them, say, 2 or 3 months apart, depending on the length. You get people to, hey, this book 1's interesting, and hey, book 2's up for pre-order. Take a chance. Most people, and especially people who are used to reading in Kindle Unlimited, they'll try a lot of new stuff.
And at the same time, it's like you can use books down the line in a series to market the books at the beginning of a series. So it's like you can use each consecutive release of a book to basically say like, hey, book 6 is out. Why don't you check out book 1, which is 99 cents on sale, or book 1, 2, and 3, which are all on sale. Or you can kind of like manipulate the the sort of pricing and sort of giveaway structure of that to use every single release to leverage the series as a whole by marketing both the new release and the earlier books that came before it.
And then so like if you're talking about editing and cover costs, that remains from book to book, but advertising costs, if you're releasing your books within a fairly decent window, like if you're releasing your books 2 to 3 months apart, you will have Amazon's algorithm shows your book a lot as a new release. In the first 30 days, it drops off a bit. After 60 days, it drops off more. After 90 days, it drops off to where the only thing that's keeping you afloat is advertising or marketing. So there's no, I'm going to call it organic from Amazon's algorithms pushing you. So if you time your releases within that window, like let's say, like the Darkblade books are 200,000 words plus. So if I release that every single month, that's a lot of pressure on me, but then it's also a lot of pressure on people who have way too many books on their TBR to get to it. So I went with 3 months apart for the first 3 books in the series. Sorry, the first 4 books in the series were all released around 3 months apart. And then what that does is it says Amazon, Amazon pushes it hard, and so do I during that initial post-launch period, and then it starts dropping off. But I'm not worried yet because I know something else is coming, and readers aren't worried yet because they know, listen, book 1, I just finished it. I enjoyed it to varying degrees, but hey, book 2's pre-order is already up, which means I know that book 2 is coming. And then by the time book 2 is about to get launched, book 3's pre-order is already up too, with a placeholder cover if necessary. Like right now, if you go look at Darkblade 8 on Amazon, it's got a placeholder cover. And when I throw up Darkblade 9, it's going to have a placeholder cover in 10 and so on, because I don't need to have the asset until very close to launch date. But telling people, listen, book 8 is coming. So when your favorite character just looked like he died off now, and you start the next book and he actually did, well, there's more coming. But the whole point is that you give people this confidence that there's more coming. And so they're more likely to take a chance on a series when they know there's more product. And as someone who's investing in it, okay, I may not break even on book 1, and it may take me a few months into book 2's release to break even, but by the time book 3 comes out, I'm in the black or I'm making a profit. So again, it's all about that long game. You will always lose on book 1. Prepare to lose money on book 1.
I'm prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go into any series or any launch, I'm going to say series because I think in series, the idea of a standalone just doesn't enter in my brain. Go into every series expecting to lose money on book 1, but write and market it and release it in a way that book 2 and 3 and however many more are released timely, so that you can profit in the long term. Because long term, especially with series, is where you really make your money. Once people are through book 2, they'll probably try book 3 unless you really pissed them off and did something wrong. And then once they're into book 3, I mean, book 4 is just a given. And then once they're book 4, well, I mean, I'm here this far, I might, and so on. So that's why, I mean, and I'm saying this as someone who has read 20, however many Dritz de Worden books, and who's read 30 whatever Dragonlance books. And, I will binge an author's back catalog because I find their storytelling is so good or the characters are so interesting. And this is where you start making money as an author.
Yeah.
That's kind of the long-term thing. And now, speaking about the post launch, you can have the greatest launch in the world. You can have every book blogger and booktuber and book podcaster talking about your book, raving about your book. And then they're going to rave about someone else's. They're going to start talking about someone else's, and you will no longer be the hot thing of the day. Where you are going to have success is if you have set yourself up for it. So with another book in the series coming, and you make sure you get those same people who loved it a copy of that book. And this is something that Ryan Cahill did incredibly smart. Yeah. He set himself up for amazing success, and it's showed by the fact that his name is now as synonymous in indie fantasy as Aragon is, or as any Pern is in Tradpub. Right. Everybody on both sides of the industry knows who Ryan Cahill is because he set himself up for success like this. So he did all this legwork of reaching out to people and putting his book in the right hands. And then he made sure to do it again with book 2. But for the rest of us mere mortals, this is where, like, there are unicorns, and it is lovely to see these people succeed. And they're always so nice about it too. Us in the workhorse community, like I will always be solid middle of the pack, and I will prepare for that for the rest of my life, so that anything above it, hooray, I did really well. Anything below it, well, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I will never be able to succeed on word of mouth alone or on algorithmic love alone, or I will never prepare for that. I will always prepare to spend money on advertising. I will prepare to spend money on marketing, which means spending time, making TikTok videos or Instagram videos, or sending, paying to send my books to reviewers or things like that, paying for advertising between Amazon and Facebook. You have a lot of very good chances to succeed with a book. Again, it all comes back to your packaging. If your book is packaged right, you will succeed. If your book is not packaged right, if your cover doesn't quite work, if your opening scene isn't quite as engaging, you're going to spend a ton of money sending people to the Amazon page, and they're not going to convert. And I will say this as someone who has spent a ton of money sending people to an Amazon page where they just don't convert. Some of my series, they're kind of dead because I can try to spend money on them, but they just won't sell. Maybe I'm slapping new covers on them, and then they'll start selling again. Or I'm going to do, something else. And this is where, as we were talking about, agility is our key to success. The fact that I'm in Kindle Unlimited, this is something that has worked for me. I don't necessarily say across the board everybody should, but it has worked for me because all four of my fantasy series are all set in the same world. So I just tell people, look, you're going to get to Darkblade 4, go read Queen of Thieves 1 through 4, and then come back and read Darkblade 5 before reading The Heirs of Destiny 1 through 6. And then before you get from Darkblade 9 to 10, go read Silent Champions. This is all intentional.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call it a gimmick because every single thing that I do, in my approach to storytelling has to matter. But it's done in the same sense that I loved Marvel Comics. I loved when Wolverine was of the Avengers, or when Deadpool and Spidey teamed up, or when, Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four went off on some adventure. So I'm bringing that thing that made me a diehard Marvel fan. I'm bringing that into my world and giving readers that same sense of, and this is where the reader first mentality comes into whatever success that we can find as specifically as indie authors. Because if I was to do that as a traditionally published author, it would be a lot harder. Sebastian de Castell does that very, very well, but it's very small. You see very few mentions of the Greatcoats world in his Spellslinger series. And then the Way of the Argosy series is set in the same world as Spellslinger, and there's a few more little nods. And then his future Greatcoat series is.
But traditional publishing doesn't necessarily allow that kind of
exactly. It's very
cross contamination.
Yeah. It's very rare that you can do that.
I'm writing a book on mushrooms. That's like
exactly.
He's living his life. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm living my best mushroom right now.
Yeah. So being an indie author, every time I just read my first Philip C. Quantrell book a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I love this. So I messaged him, what are the connections between this? And he's like, well, there's this, and I'm like, well, now I have to go read everything.
Yeah.
He succeeded in doing exactly what he set out to do. He hooked me and then made me want to read more. And this is where John Gwyn's series, The Time and Dread, succeeded. And then it's where, Dragon Riders of Pern and Dragonlance and all these other people have succeeded because they basically said, you love this? Well, here's more. Slightly different, but more. And that's where I think as indie authors, we can get away with doing a lot of that. I have the shift in tone between all four of my fantasy series are pretty stark. Like you go from very dark epic fantasy to like grim dark in the Night Guild, and then action adventure sort of young heroic fantasy with the Heirs of Destiny, and then military, real military stuff in Silent Champions. But the consistent through line is that it's my voice as an author, it's my characters, it's my world, it's all these things. So people, if I find a reader who's like, you know what, grimdark is too dark for me, well, I'm like, well, here's my action adventure series. Enjoy some young people falling in love and saving the day. If they're like, look, I can't get behind young adult, well, here, have some grimdark, have some violent assassin. You can do all this kind of stuff. You can experiment and play around with it, and going into the writing with this intentionality, like that is, I think, we're gonna boil this whole podcast down to one thing.
Andy. Bring it, Andy.
Go into your writing career with an intentionality. Be intentional with your research, with your reading, with your learning. Learn as much as you can. Be intentional with the stories you're telling, the packaging you're doing, the people you're reaching out to, the people you're connecting with, and you've got the chance of success.
And there's no better note to end on than that, my friend.
Money shot.
Money.
There's your 10-second TikTok clip. Yeah.
Dude, well, thank you so much. That's it for this live mini masterclass with Andy Peloquin and our crossover episode with the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Daniel, for kicking off TBR Con with MJ and I. It means a lot. We'll just go around and everyone can promote their work, say where they can be found on social media and all that stuff. MJ, we'll go with you.
Oh, I can just start. You can find me across all social media at MJ Kuhn Books, all one word. You can find everything about me just at mjkuhn.com. And also, check out my books, Among Thieves, Thick as Thieves, this fantasy heist duology, completed duology. So full series.
That makes me very happy.
Baby. Yeah.
And go sign up for MJ's newsletter and get a free story.
Yeah.
And go sign up for our Patreon, and you can hear me read it in a Scottish accent.
So. In a Scottish accent, it's so good. You
better.
So good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Andy, what about you, bud?
I mean, you can see my name. Oh, the screen. There you go. My name's a little hard to spell. It's French-Canadian name. It's technically Andy Peloquin, but I don't want to sound like a douchebag. So Peloquin.
You Quebecois.
Exactly. So just like my website's andypeloquin.com. I'm on social media as you can just Google Andy Peloquin author and you'll find all of my various social medias. I'm focusing a lot more on Instagram and TikTok right now because it gives me a chance to just rave about books that I love reading. And as you can see by my shelf, I'm very proud of my reading accomplishments for the last couple of years. So
and you do a lot of TikToks about being a writer too, and it makes me happy because I'm like, I'm feeling a little bummed out today, and Andy just pops in with some motivation. That's great.
I'm glad the timing, TikTok times the algorithms right for you.
It's creepy enough. It knows.
Yeah, go pick up Andy's books, man. They're fantastic, and he's a wonderful human being. Yeah. And Daniel, what about you?
I can be found everywhere with the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I also can be found literally anywhere as author Daniel Kubal. I think Instagram, it's weird. I have like author _ Daniel Kubal. But if you search my first and last name, then you'll be able to find me. And then Adrian, actually, you and I will be on my podcast really soon, which is really exciting. And hoping to get these other two. Or sorry, guys, go the other way. Andy and MJ.
These other fuckers outside. I don't know who.
I've been waiting on a couple. People get back to me, so I haven't been able to send you guys invites yet. I want to get like actual dates for you guys. But I'm like 3 people away, and then I'll be sending them out to you guys. So I'm like really super excited to have all 3 of you guys on really soon. And MJ obviously is a returner alumni, which is awesome. So
nice, man. All right, and and your novella, The Hunted, later this year. People can look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And talking like with in terms of what Andy was just talking about, like we'll have each of them within 2 months, novella 2 and 3, pretty close to one another. Nice. So the pre-orders will be like really tight together. And that's also to see, kind of test the waters in the novella realm, but also, to kind of see, is it, should I put out book 1 for that? I have another, I do crossovers. I love crossovers. So you'll see some of my Ogres and Overlords series. It's like all set in the same world. And then you'll see some of those guys will pop into Nathaniel's books. And then I got some other different classes of people as well. Valkyrie, things like that, characters. So it's kind of eventually be like speaking of MCU, like a Avenger style thing, which will eventually lead to its own series, which is kind of cool. So
right on. Thanks, David. You're also fucking wholesome.
Ooh,
you can put the
only if MJ does it.
Just me.
Parts, baby.
Might be too far away.
You can also follow SFF Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, all that stuff at SFF Addicts Pod. You can follow me at Adrian M Gibson, where you can find out more about Mushroom Blues. Now, keep reading, keep imagining, and keep enjoying the rest of TBR Con 2024 week. Thank you all so much for watching and tuning in and asking us amazing questions and being so wholesome in the chat, because y'all are fucking awesome. And thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We will see you next time on SFF Addicts. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.